I'm ready. You ready? Okay. I am here to present for you a clinic that is anticipatory of what I'm going to be doing in two clinics at Novi at the National Convention in July. And I coordinated this with Russ so that I could give a sort of not a dry run, but the front end of it is a sort of dry run of what it would be. Because I really want the clinic to be a very good representation of the hundreds and hundreds of hours that I've already put into this model. It is truly a work of love. It is going to be my very last structure because I will be dead by the time I do another one of these. The title of my presentation today is Building the Whitefish Station. You have been involved in at least 3 instances during the period of my doing this where I have taken sections of it and given you sort of a background area is like. And now I forgot the advance. The advance is shift right there. Okay, so the early portion of this presentation is going to spend some time on the architecture of the building. It's important for you to know that my wife has an architecture background. If it hadn't been for a couple of kids in the middle of Indianapolis in their college days, she probably would be an architect today, but she had to make a choice of continuing with her education or being a mom. She chose the mom. So my background here is based on some good stuff that came from Nancy. The building design is essentially, it was constructed by the Great Northern Railway in the 27 and 28 timeframe. So the structure is coming up on 100 years old. Okay. It's a 3-story building. It's Tudor Revival style in Nancy's world. There was a major restoration done in the 1980s when Burlington Northern donated the building to the Stumptown Museum. Amtrak uses it as a depot now, and that's where most of the people get to see it. Okay. There on the bottom right-hand side of this slide, I'm sorry, middle of the middle side, is a corner picture of the original diagrams, architectural drawings for the unit. And it was done by a Canadian national by the name of Thomas Darcy McMahon. I was given an opportunity to use these drawings. There are 5 of these drawings in a big form like so. From Scott Kremer. Some of you know him as the chairperson of the Indy 2020 convention. When I was still in the stages of deep recovery from cancer, he told me he had some drawings. They came to him because he was the Detroit Edison coal purveyor controller for all of the coal that was bought for the facility. And Burlington Northern delivers a lot of coal to them for the Detroit operation. And he got these drawings, and the drawings were magnificent. I was very privileged to get them. I found out a little bit about Thomas. He's a Canadian national. He worked in the Great Northern Engineering Department, became the chief draftsman, and later the company architect. And that at the bottom is his signature on the drawings. I used them extensively to translate McMahon's scale, which was 1/3/8 inch to the foot, into N scale sizes to be used by my model. And I want to tell you, I think it has taken hundreds of hours to do all of that, to take the caliper and put it on the drawing, and then take the measurement of its size, run it into the computer, and create an N scale equivalent of that. It is, as I said, based on a style of architecture called Tudor Revival. It draws its inspiration from a lot of stuff in the medieval English building tradition and Elizabethan and Jacobean era, very popular in this country in the 1890s to the 1940s. The style characteristics are very steeply pitched roofs, decorative hand timbering, stucco detailing, narrow multi-paned windows, and ornamental facades. And I will go into those details. Half timbering is what you see on the top half of the building, where there are heavy-duty pieces of timber that are separated with panels in between filled by stucco. The timbers are left exposed. They're actually construction level timbers so that they're not just pieces of wood. And it makes them both decorative and functional, and it's widely used in Europe. You all know what clapboard siding is. You've used it probably in a number of your systems. And if you look on the lower portion of the building, there are the whole wall, the whole lower half of the wall is made of clapboard siding. In N scale, it's damn near impossible to be able to show the overlap on them, but those on my model are individual laps of individual pieces that are 0.020 in size and laid on top of each other and glued in place. So that's the exterior wood cladding made by those boards. The massive root structure is still to be done, to be completed. It is designed, it works, and now I just simply have to cut it in place and put it onto the top and finish it all off. It is cedar shake roof, and it will have 3 prominent dormers, one that you see here on the drawing, and 2 of them that are on the rail side of the depot that are exactly the same. So there's 3 of those prominent dormers on this layout. You're looking here at the rail side. That other side is the street side. Now let me talk about the new modeling techniques and that I've added some tool stuff to it. My clinic is really all about those techniques and tools. I have defined a new way to make very strong exterior walls and do something, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, much more important than the fact that it's a new way to do wall builds. And then a new way to build windows and doors. If you spend very much time in the N scale world, thinking about it or doing it, windows is the biggest pain in the ass because they are all basically extruded plastic and they can't get the extrusion small enough and it looks out of size. And so I didn't want that. I'm not putting this many hours into it to make it look that. Over my years of N-scale structure building, I have become a basswood diehard. I started originally in styrene and began to discover the problems that you have with edge cutting, cutting the opening for the windows, and all the difficulties you have with it. It's just too hard of a structure to use in N-scale. So basswood became my model, my fire station, all of my other buildings to date have all been with basswood, and basswood's a very darn good source to use there. But I was still encountering difficulties cutting the precisely located windows and doors. It's hard to do with basswood because it's got a grain, and all of a sudden it'll take your knife blade and it'll bend it, and there you go. So I needed to find a better way to build a depot. And during my cancer year, a lot of thought and a lot of time went into it because I didn't have much time to do anything else. And I thought hard and long about the idea of putting together a different kind of wall structure. So here we go. It uses a plywood style of build that uses 3 layers of material. There is an inside and outside layer of 67-pound cardstock. In my case, ivory colored, but you could make it any color you wanted, because it's going to show to the public view from the outside in. So you need to decide what color you want that outside layer to be. The inside can be anything. Okay. It has a middle layer of 1/32 inch 4x36 balsa wood interior, purchased from Hobby Lobby in my case, or Scale Reproductions. There's all of that kind of stuff is available. Get as good a piece of wood as you can from the list, from the pile. And then I very carefully cut the layers and glued them together with Elmer's glue stick. But before all of that, of course, comes all of the work with the computer. That's how the ply wall is built. One of the unplanned advantages of this technique was that I could print the outside cardstock layer with elevation drawings from my computer and laser print them in N scale size. And so here's the roof structure. Okay. And that is the drawing in my computer of the 1 inch by 1 inch scale. Okay, and I got this scale by going through this huge amount of work with the calipers and the multiplying, how to translate from McMahon's drawings into my computer program. And that then represents a copy of the wall. And the fact that you can print on it makes the precision location of all of those boards on there a cinch. And it really, really does help. Okay, there is a big blow up of the 3-ply wall, one of the ends. And you can notice that there is printing on that. That's printed on the outside cardstock. And there you see the boards that have been cut, identified on the portion of the build that I've finished, where the brown marks, those are 0.04 strip styrene pieces that are colored with a Sharpie pen in brown. And so now all of those places where you see the empty lines are going to be the pieces of boards and stuccos that get glued on top of it. On the bottom portion of it, you see the clapboard. Okay, those are 0.04, 0.03, I think. And you see one of them there in white. That's how it comes from the factory. It's glued in place. And then the other cutouts that I've already started on there have been cut out for the windows, and the areas where there's the black dots, those are other windows that have to get cut out. That makes this plywood piece, there's a next one for that one. That's a sample of a mistake that was made, but that gives you the feel for how it looks and all the rest. Okay, now on the workshop bench, there is a finished version of the one that's coming around now that shows the colors in brown being the heavy duty lumbers. The orange, the color is the cardstock color, and the white is the plastic pieces that are making up the clapboard. Okay, you see my tools there. It's a part of it. Okay, so then, given that I came up with that idea, the next new idea is windows and doors. My experience with windows and doors is, as said, it was usually people use extruded plastic windows, and they're very limited in size and style. And so I couldn't make a perfect reproduction of it because you couldn't find any of those kind of windows anywhere. So I decided I was going to have to make my own. And here's another place where you sit and think about it a while and you come up with an idea, and by George, it works. I turned to my computer and printer and decided to design my own windows and doors. Windows consist of a whole lot of different parts. There is the stool, there's the casing trim, there's all the sash and glass components, the stiles, the jambs, the rails, the panes, the muntins and mullions. All of those are in a window system, okay? And the computer allows me to build my own window, just like it would look as a window, with these particular things, the stiles, the jambs, the rails, all sized appropriately. And my computer lets me blow up that window to 800 times its size. So I can really make it really quite deep, in quite detail. And then shift it back down to 100%, and it's ready to be put on the building. I created each window type that's on there into a CAD drawing using the above parts that are mentioned in the previous thing, and then collectively defined the piece as a group. And in computer-aided design, when you do a group, Brett.
There's a question from Joe Martin online. He asks, what computer program did you use?
I use McDraft, which is a copy of an old form that is still around. It's two-dimensional, and I love it. And I am really pretty good at it. But Joe, it's McDraft. I shrunk the window down in size to the sizes on the architectural drawing of the depot, and then further shrunk it down into a scale it would be able to put it in. The building has about a dozen different window types, none of which I could buy commercially from anybody. I then copied as many of each windows used on the building, giving each window type a size code, and printed the copy on a sheet of plastic called transparency film. You all remember what that is, okay? That's the thing you used to put on the top of a machine and it lets you do a slideshow like we're doing today. So all my windows are on one 8.5 by 11 piece of transparency film. And then I copied each one of them, giving them a type and size code so I could get back to them. So now I had a black and clear, not black and white, but black and clear version of the window printed on the transparency. So think of this 8.5 by 11 sheet now having all kinds of windows like this printed on it, okay, with a laser printer. To get additional depth, I took the transparency with the printed windows on them and laminated it into another jacket of plastic using a laminator. You all have used a laminator, I'm sure. So now I have 3 pieces of plastic. I have the transparency, and I have 2 additional layers from the sleeve that the thing was put in, and then it gets heat treated, and most importantly, freezes the image inside the exterior in the interior plastic. It freezes it inside there. And then I carefully knife cut the windows of the transparency, and it's projected to half, and that now becomes my window. But I had one more important step. You can't just take that window and put it in. You got to get it attached. So I added a piece of clear plastic sheet about a 1/16 inch larger than the window and glued it to the back of the window assembly with canopy glue. And I inserted the window assembly into the window opening from the inside, permanently attaching the window to the 3-ply cardstock, and it holds it against the wall. I use the same technique to build several doors. The doors are very ornate, and I made, computer copies of the doors, blew them up, moved everything around, colored them, everything else, printed them back, and now they become my doors, the same kind of style stuff. Okay, any questions at this point about the new techniques? I'd like to just maybe slow down a second and answer any questions you have about the concept. Yes.
When you cut through the laminated This was also wood in the center. Did it follow the grain any?
Remember, it was balsa wood, and the outside pieces are cardstock. So the knife isn't finding anything for it to do but put a cut right where you put it.
Or the cardstock?
The cardstock gets cut first, and then apply. Then the basswood, balsa wood is in between. Then there's a final third piece underneath, and it's quite simple. Originally, I was worried about being able to make square corners. No problem. Okay, a lot of people have to drill a hole in the four corners to make that thing, because you can now make perfectly cut with a knife edge kind of a device.
I have a rookie question.
Barbara.
Is balsa the same as basswood?
Pardon?
I may have a
You
rookie.
said basswood and balsa both interchangeably.
Are they the same thing?
No. Balsa wood is extremely fragile. The people at the shop, at scale reproduction, use it for airplanes because it has to be light, but it's very, very, you gotta put coat after coat after coat of things on it to make it get its strength. Basswood is as harder than this, but it's very hard to cut. And so the whole issue was trying to avoid that cut problem. I'd try to make a good rectangular cut, and there'd be a little bowl in it, or all of a sudden the knife got into a strip of grain and it would move over. So by the time I was able to use a tool that I'm going to show you about, a cordless sander and the stick kind of stuff. So, any other questions on construction?
Just
Yes,
a
David.
comment, you said you had to take the drawings and use calipers and dig down. I don't know if you know this, but if you had a scale drawing, 3/8 inches with a foot, if you figure out what the reduction factor is from that to end scale, you can take that whole print to someplace like Lin Imaging. They can scan it and reduce the whole drawing down, so you don't have to take calipers and convert one to the other. So if you get an overall conversion factor, from yours down to N scale or HO scale.
Where were you 3 years ago?
But I mean, if you do any more and anybody else does, you have
Yeah.
full scale drawings or whatever.
Yeah.
Get the reduction factor, you go to Lin Imaging, they can take the drawing, scan it, reduce it down, and you've got a scale drawing at N scale.
Perfect.
So-
And that's exactly what I did repeatedly over and over and over again, mathematically. I had,
It's gonna cost you some money to do that,
yeah.
but takes it all down at one time and saves you a whole lot of. conversion.
It's also highly dependent upon a really good drawing, and these drawings are, 100 years old. So that,
Yeah, I mean, if you get.
and so taking a picture of the 100-year-old drawing, it gets kind of dicey. So, but but during my medical recovery year, I had a lot of time, and a lot of time was spent doing just exactly what you said, caliper. That translates down to something on there, 0.02
Right, yeah.
inches.
It was just an idea of it.
Yeah.
Because I work for an architectural firm, I've got a lot of drawings, and I can take them,
Yeah.
reduce them down to HO scale or N scale or whatever.
Yeah.
and Do it that way. So-
That's very helpful because there's a lot of stuff like that. That's what the new world 3D printing is gonna be all about. Yes, Bob?
As far as cutting out the window and door openings, Fred has been using a laser cutter.
Oh, no, Barbara has been using a laser cutter.
Okay, Barbara has been using a laser cutter at the library. Is that capable of this kind of precision?
Sure. And you'd be able to do it on basswood, but you can't print. You can't print on the I'm having trouble with my words. You can't print on the ply, on the outside ply, the picture of the thing. The beauty here is combining both ideas. You got a paper outside, and you can print on the paper. You can't print on basswood. Okay. So I think if you had a simple building, absolutely the idea would be to go to laser cutting.
I didn't know you know, you could print all the details and stuff on it and then throw it in a laser cutter, cut the openings.
Well, cutting the openings would be one thing, but remember what my real advantage here is I know exactly where to put that board on the drawing. Exactly, because it's printed on the outside wall. It's like it's an already defined, almost like painting by numbers, okay?
Yes, no, exactly right.
Painting by numbers.
Yeah, good analogy. Yeah, really good analogy.
Okay, so the tools. For the last 3 weeks, I have been in a mental funk over the fact that those things that I passed around on the bottom section of the clapboard siding were done using a Sharpie pen and brown color. And it looked terrible. Absolutely, unequivocally, it looked terrible. It had varying degrees of brown, you know, it was washed. You can see some of it on the residuals of the stuff I sanded off. And I thought to myself, you're going to have to airbrush this. There's no other way of getting it smooth and clean. And so for almost a month, I was in a funk about learning how to airbrush until this meeting made it happen. I was running out of time and I said, okay, Bruce, damn it, you got to decide you're going to do it. Okay. And I took it over to Frank Stevenson's house, who's a pretty good modeler in Division 10. And I took my durable sprayer over it with me. And it worked. It worked beautifully. So there is a tool that I want to make sure you guys spend some time looking at over there called the cordless airbrush, made by Autolock. It has rechargeable batteries in it. It gives you mobility. It lets you airbrush anywhere without being tethered to a noisy power source. Recent models feature dual action triggers, auto stop functions for quiet operations, and rechargeable batteries. And they're especially handy for modeling work or quick touch. So I invested $40 in a cordless airbrush, and it saved my butt. Okay, there is a picture of it. There are the 2 bottles of acrylic brown and ultra marine blue, which were mixed together to get the browns exactly the same as the Sharpie color. And there's me with my spray gun. Notice there's nothing on it other than the spray gun, and I'm spraying one of the sections that's over here on the unit. Okay, that was last Wednesday. Yes.
Question on the cordless airbrush. I've used small compressors with airbrushes, and if you don't have a holding tank, you get a pulsing from the compressor itself. In other words, it's not a constant airflow, it's more of a pulsed airflow. Does the little cordless one have any issues like that?
It may be doing that, but I didn't sense at all that it was interfering with the paint. We didn't put anything into the paint but the paint. We didn't add any accelerator or anything else, you know, materials. We thought first we were just going to put those 2 together. I use Vallejo, okay? And I just made a decision to go with one manufacturer's. And you can hear it. I mean, you can hear it pulsing. You can hear it, you know, but I did not get any sense that it was spitting. But I'm not a master airbrusher, okay? Any other questions about it? Okay, the other one is a miniature sander. And that has been very helpful to me, even though I was able to make my cuts on the plies for the windows. That sander let me get in and work those windows into perfect flat pieces. And it's tiny. It only has a burnishing head about that big, and it's vibrating and it's acting as a sander. Along with sanding sticks, you got a pretty darn good job done on the windows and doors. And again, this is about like 30 bucks. There it is. So that end piece has different kinds of things that you can stick in it. I use the triangle, and you stick a piece of sandpaper on it, and there's your sander. And you have 5 speeds, slow to maximum high. And then the third one is a mini drill pen, and that's over there also. It's a tiny little drill that has very, very, very fine drill bits on it. And I used it drill holes for all my LED lights. So I stick the 608 LED down through that hole, glue it in place, and there's my light. Chuck?
Your source for this tool?
Amazon. All 3 of them are on Amazon. There's an example of it. That's the control device. There are the drill bits in the bottom of it. Okay, then it's time to put all the parts together. Okay, and so how did I get to that level? I go back. I first built the first floor slab and the partitions inside the slab. So the partitions represent the true use of the depot today. From your left to right, your left side is the freight room, the current freight room. The in-between next size is the Amtrak offices. And if you look carefully, you can see a cutout on the partition for the windows where you do your negotiating with the people working in the second staff. The front set of units on the third section are all of the toilets and washrooms and quiet areas that are in the building. And then the large section on the far right is the Stumptown Museum space. So all of that floor slab and partitions is important because that's how you begin to hold the building together. There are the 2 track side and rail side portions of the building, finished, painted, and ready to go. And you'll notice that the doors are not cut out yet. That's because that's continues to allow that building to be handled, and you know those pieces that come down between the doors get fragile and get broken. So that I didn't take them out, I just sprayed them and they'll be cut out. There is on the bottom, you see that large square? There is this extremely ornate piece of decoration that's put on the top and inserts itself into that place where the big white opening is to become a third dormer. And it's 3-dimensional out this way. And it's got this ornate piece that was hand-built and cut and will be glued on. I did not want to glue it onto the board because that's an accident waiting to happen. Okay, so I didn't want to do that yet. So that's still loose. But that's an example of the kind of stuff you can do with this ply thing. You strengthen it from back behind it with ordinary strengtheners. There's a top view of this without the roof on. There is that picture, which you can come up and take a look at later. So I'm now in I'm fitting the thing all together, making sure it's all ready to go. And you'll notice that there are lines on the roof. Those are where the dormers die back in. So that will be a dormer that gets cut back in. So still to be done between now and mid-July. I've got to install all the windows and doors on the walls. I've got to build and install the first floor ceiling and add 20 603 diodes to the main floor lighting. I have to add partitions for the second floor and ceiling to add 20 LEDs for the second floor lighting. So it will be lit down here on the first floor. It will be lit up on the second floor. The attic will not be lit up. I didn't see any sense in doing that. And that prohibits me anyway, if I do the ceiling, the attic, to how do I attach the LEDs to it? And enough is enough. I need to install the roof rafters. I've got 7 roof rafters built that will be going across the length of it. And I have to install the 2 roof sections, one of which is circling around. Here's the other one. And I got to build the 4 dormer roofs that you see there, those structures, and then do the roof shingles. And when I get all of that done, I'm done. I will be entering the model as a display in the model showcase. And I am not entering it into the contest. I mean, I am building up a massive resistance to taking things to the regional and national conventions to get your AP stuff. This is gonna be judged by my peers here in the division. I will be presenting 2 clinics using the material that you have seen today. And I planned to attend mostly clinics and see a couple of home layouts. And I'm not taking any damn T-track with me. Okay, this convention is for me. Are there any additional questions?
How do you seal the markers, you know, when you use those markers?
How do I,
When you use those markers for coloring and stuff, you have to seal them later on, so that
No.
it doesn't wash off.
no, the only thing that will move it is glue. If I get glue on the stucco slash on the stick painter, it runs. Okay, it takes the paint and moves it. So
So you gotta be careful, I mean, like.
I haven't, I thought about whether or not I should put a fixant on the whole thing to protect it, and I haven't quite got the guts yet to think about whether I want to spray that with
The
a,
thing is, yeah, alcohol will probably take those markers off. I mean, if you got an extra track and you're trying to put ballast or something, if you got any kind of alcohol.
I'm sorry, Rick, I'm missing your point.
It's just on the raised parts, the starting parts have that brown marker on it. Well, alcohol will take that off of there.
If it's on the layout and you lay a track next to it.
I'll be very damn careful. No, it is gonna have this base on it. Okay, I mean, everything I do starts out, this is a basswood base. Okay, so there's gonna be a base there. That base is gonna have landscaping and stuff put on it very carefully and will be set onto the layout and removable from the layout, along with the rest of the products that are a part of this thing. There's another freight house and there's other things. But exact same thing I did with my fire station.
Yeah.
Using the light system.
No, I'm using the Bruce DeMaeyer LED system, okay?
So you put like resistor on every one of the LEDs?
Yeah. And that will be on this board that's inside here. Okay?
Yeah.
You see the little holes? Can you see them? That's where the LEDs will be stuck into that. There'll be a 470 ohm resistor that gets wired into that, and they all get bridged together, and down the hole, down the bottom, there'll be they're gonna run it.
That way you don't have to pull out. You know, if you put one resistor for all the diodes, it would work, but if you ever had an issue, pull out.
Well, my fire station had, I think, probably about 40 lights in it in the inside. And it was a nightmare. I mean, I really regret building it the way I did. I used pretty heavy wire. You can buy 608 diodes already wired, and they have really fine wire on them. I thought for a while that maybe I would use the 600 series resistors and just solder those little tiny resistors piece to piece. And I thought, Jim, why? You know, those little resistors are only about that big.
Right.
And I'm gonna shrink wrap each one of them so that it can't get up shorts. And so laying on this thing is gonna be all those LEDs, and another floor will be put on top of it so that you can't see the LED wiring through the windows this way, because, you know, when you guys come to do your judging for me for my AP, you'd be sitting there looking and somebody's gonna say, oh, look at this yellow wires. No deductions.
Speaking of which, are you gonna have like office walls or things on the second floor?
Yeah. Yes. There will be an attempt to do a little bit of that. The trouble is, I don't know what they are. Okay, because it's not open to the public. I went into the first floor and I took interior pictures. I know where the snack bars, the snack machines are gonna be, and I'm gonna use Digicom paper equivalents to make, you know, the Pepsi rack and the stuff. All of that's gonna be done with that kind of stuff. But I don't know what the upstairs looks like. So all I'm gonna really use the second floor partitions for is for strength. I'll make them, and remember, then the roof rafters sit on top of that, so that's where all the strength for the building will be.
What do you use for the petitions?
Basswood. Yeah, you can come and look at that, but those are basswood partitions. And I'm not being very particular at all about, you know, how square they are and all that kind of stuff, because, you know, you can't even see inside of it. Okay, Bruce is.
Thank you, Bruce.